I am at World Headquarters today, looking right over my computer at Lake Michigan, the beautiful view from President nominee Larry Lunsford's office. It's spectacular up here. They say it's going to get to 40 degrees. Just a spectacular day in Greater Chicago. So thank you so much for getting us set up, Chris. Thank you, Cookie, for all your organization for this meeting, and Sean Patty, the man behind the blank tile on the screen. Thank you for your production as well. We always appreciate all that you do, and it's great to be able to join you today from One Rotary Center. I'm going to use my time today to give part two of a report from our January Board of Directors meeting, the RI Board of Directors. I shared a number of things last month, but there were a couple of topics that I skipped that I think will be of particular interest to all of you. So I'm going to cover those today. One of those is the realignment of our zones worldwide. This is a process that takes place every 8 years. I think in this case, we may be 9 years out. But much like the United States Congress will rebalance the districts to have close to equal representation in the U.S. Congress, we do the same thing in Rotary, essentially taking the July 1 count of Rotarian membership around the world, dividing it by 34 for our 34 zones, and then trying to be sure that we get as close as we can to equal representation. We split the world into three regions: the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia Pacific. I think that's pretty self-explanatory about what those three regions are. And in this case, doing the math, the Americas came out a little bit over 11 zones. We currently have 12. So that means that the Americas will lose a zone. And that's simply based on the fact that the Americas have gone down in Rotarian membership, and Asia Pacific has gone up in membership. So they will pick up that zone. So we've been going through this process of working on this now for the past 8 months. And during the January board meeting, we received a report from a committee. Now, the overall committee has one representative from each zone. I represent Zone 33 as a sitting director. And the other 16 elected directors do the same. And then each of the paired zones of the sitting directors has a representative, either the director-elect, if there is a director-elect in place, or the immediate past director, if that's the case. So if you're a second-year director like me, your paired zone is represented by a director-elect. In our case, Marshall Butler, who has done a really spectacular job, frankly, of helping us with this process. First-year directors have their immediate past for their paired zone. So we've worked through that process. South America currently has 2 zones and will continue to have 2 zones, with Brazil taking 1.5 of those zones, and then most of the other Spanish-speaking countries comprising the other half of the zone. So that left North America to work its way from 10 zones down to 9. Now, I think for the average club out there, this has no bearing. Most of them couldn't tell you what zone they're in, if they could even tell you what district they're in. So not too big a deal there. But for those of us who have served in the governor line, who've made great friendships, this can be a tough process when a zone might be dissolved and those districts moved into other zones. It can also be a wonderful thing. In the case of our last rezoning, we added 3 districts from Pennsylvania, a little bit of Maryland, a little bit of West Virginia, and Stephanie Yurchik, who's so beloved by all of us, moved into our zones just as she was preparing to become a director. So was definitely a great windfall for us to have Stephanie and so many other great friends from those 3 districts join us. But it is a tricky process, and part of why I said Marshall has made such an extraordinary contribution is that his relationship with Charles Elwood, who many of you met in Jacksonville, our AI expert. Charles contributed just countless hours to help us take the emotion out of the process of evaluating where we were going to dissolve a zone and how we allocate everything as fairly as we can. Charles was fantastic, and Marshall was able to sort of guide him from a Rotary perspective about the types of things that should be considered. The good news is, looking at North America, Zone 33 was the only zone that was over that benchmark of Rotarian membership. In other words, 1/34th of the world Rotarian population. So that was helpful. And Zone 34 was reasonably close. So with the votes that have been taken at the January board meeting, Zone 33 will remain intact as it is. It will neither lose any districts nor gain any districts. Zone 34, all of the current districts will remain intact, and we will add the two districts from Alabama. So the state of Alabama that sits right above District 6940 will join us. We will work on items like the pairing of zones and the timing of these changes coming up at the April and the June board meetings so that everything is set by the beginning of the next Rotary year. But I am excited about our friends in District 6860 and 6880 in Alabama joining us. That will be fun. We'll have all kinds of new friends joining us, and some of those folks go back far enough they were formerly part of our zones because with these changes that occur um, every 8 years, sometimes we have districts that move one way and then move back. I'm going to just drop the link in the chat. If you want to take a look, you can see how each of the 34 zones will be comprised going forward. The other thing I'll note is that some zones were renumbered, even if they didn't change composition. In our case, we will remain Zone 33 and Zone 34. Maybe it helps to be at the end of the list there of those 34 zones. It certainly couldn't give us a higher number. And as it turns out, we keep 33 and 34. We are certainly hopeful that, given our history, the very tight working relationship, between our two zones, the fact that our regional action plans really have all of our regional leader teams working together seamlessly, and the fact that our foundation has taken in a couple $1 million of disaster relief and maintains this joint foundation, we're hopeful that we will remain paired and believe that is likely, but that is not at this point official. Moving forward, the other thing I wanted to share with you was committee appointments for the 2026-2027 year. About this time last year, I shared with you all what those appointments were and wanted you to be aware next year some of the leaders from our two zones and how they'll be serving at the international level. Marshall Butler, of course, will be our director starting July 1 of 26, and he will serve on the board committee, the Participant Experience Committee. He will also be the board liaison to the Joint Communications Committee. And for anybody who has heard or seen the result of his work, you'll understand why he's a very natural fit for the Communications Committee. The Communications Committee serves both boards, both the Board of Trustees of the Rotary Foundation and the Board of Directors of Rotary International. So really pleased for Marshall to have both of those assignments. Trustee Stephanie Yurchik, who you will hear from in just a little bit. She, of course, will be a member of the Board of Trustees of the Rotary Foundation and serve on multiple committees within the Rotary Foundation. Cindy Covington is joining the Board of Trustees July 1st. Really excited about that, considering our two zones are such stalwart supporters of the Rotary Foundation in so many ways. I'm really excited that we have two representatives on the trustees, and Cindy will be a member of multiple of the trustee committees as well. Peter Kyle will continue his service on the Joint Operations Review Committee. This is, I don't know how to put it any other way. I would call it a super committee. It has one position available each year. It is a 6-year term. They are meeting about 30 yards from where I'm sitting right now in the boardroom at this moment for one of their in-person meetings. But he'll continue his service there. Chris Jones will join the Membership Growth Committee July 1st of this year for a 3-year term. Really excited to have Chris in that position. I know he will represent us well. I will tell you that downstairs from me right now, Haresh Ramchandani and his partner Vindu are a part of the meeting that I just stepped out of, and that is because he is the moderator for International Assembly in 2027. And he served 2 years as what we call a training leader, 3 years as the seminar leader. He is in very, very good position to make a nice impact on and to produce a great event for our current governor nominees who will be governors elect next January. Charlie Rogers and Mary will be the Chief Sergeant at Arms at International Assembly next year. And many of you know Charlie for his years of service and currently as N34's Endowed and Major Gifts Advisor, but has been ever present as a sergeant, he and Mary at International Assembly. So really glad that they'll have that opportunity. I know that they will serve so well there. And then finally, many of you are aware that I will serve as Larry Lunsford's aide for the next 28 months, I guess that is. And so as an aide, I'll participate as part of the convention committee for the 2028 convention. And we've already had one site visit to Minneapolis for that, which was frankly makes me very, very optimistic for that convention. The convention center in particular is just really perfect for our conventions. I think it's going to work very well. Everything under one roof and very easy to access by their light rail and by walking. So very excited about that. So that is enough of me for this first section of our ZoomFormation call. Again, I appreciate all of you being here. It's always nice to see that we always have over 100 people who are so interested to get together each first Monday of the month. So I appreciate you being here. And I now have the pleasure of turning the show over to Stephanie Yurchik. I mentioned her earlier in the call. And I think beloved is a great term for Stephanie. She's a previous Rotary International president. She's our previous director. She has served so ably in both, and I can tell you that as a person who was a member of the board of directors that she chaired, just masterful in the way she led our organization and been a great friend to so many of us, to so many of our districts, and giving of her time and just giving of herself. So Stephanie, my friend, I appreciate you joining us today and look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much, Director Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be with all of you, and I'm happy to do so today. Before I share information with you this afternoon about our Rotary Foundation and a little bit about some polio eradication highlights, I just want to acknowledge the fact that the world is changing. And Rotary is always on top of those changes and understanding the implications of what those changes mean for us. So in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks or beyond, there are things happening in the world that may affect the way that we operate, but Rotary is always able to move around, beyond, above, whatever it takes to make sure that we remain the peace builders that we are. We are on this call from different countries, all right, but we are all Rotarians. And so I just want to remind you of the importance of the fact that as Rotarians, we have an ability and a responsibility to promote peace throughout the world. So this afternoon, I want to talk with you, first of all, about some things that happen at the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, by our Rotary Code of Policy, meets 4 times a year. We meet twice in person, once in the fall in October and once in the spring in April. So next month we'll be meeting in Evanston. And then the other 2 times we meet at events that are happening. So we meet in our International Assembly in January, and then we meet wherever our convention is being held in the late spring or early summer. Any other meetings that we have are done virtually. Now, the difference between the Board of Trustees and the Board of Directors beyond the job description is the fact that there are 17 directors, but only 15 trustees. The trustees are assigned to be paired with zones. This year, I happen to be paired with our zones, 33 and 34, but beginning July 1st, Cindy Covington will be the primary person responsible in zones 33 and 34, and I will be secondary. I will have another set of paired zones somewhere in the United States. So let me tell you what happened in January at our board meeting. January is always a short meeting because it's attached to our International Assembly. So in addition to approving the appointments to committees, and Patrick has done a great job of sharing some of that with you, we did establish a polio task force for Germany. Now, the reason a country may establish a task force sometimes has to do with funding, but in this case, it had to do with the fact that polio showed up in Germany. And as you know, polio eradication is our number one responsibility. It's our number one external project. So a task force was established to help the country take a look at where else they may strengthen responsibilities and move things in different directions. For those of you who work with global grants in your grant activity, the application for that process has been streamlined. And while I don't work particularly with programs in scholarships, those of you who do may notice that the application process is going to become simpler. There is no more Ashoka. Ashoka was a partnership that Rotary had, and much like what we did with IEP, the Institute for Economics, we decided that it was time for us to move on beyond that. You know, I look at that as sort of, we took our training wheels off and it was time for us to move forward. So our relationship with Ashoka ended amicably, just as it did with IEP, but it's time for us to move on. One of the things that happens at every trustee meeting is an allocation of funding. So at the January meeting, in about 5 minutes, we gave out $50 million. And most of that went for technical assessments, for polio, for operational support, for social mobilization, for vaccine procurement, and for research. So $50 million in 5 minutes was, something amazing to me. We also approved 10 International Service awardees for Polio Free World, and we approved the budget assumptions for this Rotary year. We take a look, the budget assumptions are a way to look ahead and make decisions about where we think interest rates are going to be. So for the annual fund and the operational reserve, we assume they're going to be around 4%. For the endowment fund, we assume that it's going to be around 5%. And for Polio Plus, we assume it's going to be about 2.5%. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time talking with you about some highlights that have happened since the last time we met in our global effort to eradicate polio. And these are important because I think they strengthen some of our understanding about the mission that we have. The United States Congress has finalized most of its budget for 2026, and they've allocated $265 million for global polio eradication efforts. 180 million of that will go to the Centers for Disease Control, and 85 million will go to the U.S. State Department. Now, why is that significant? It's significant because that funding level represents level funding since the year 2023. So, you may have heard that we have a group of people who work in DC and Polio Advocacy Task Force. That's what they do. That's what they're doing when they're in DC. They're working to make sure that the people in government understand the importance of the efforts that we maintain because of the promise that we've made to children in the world. In December, a foundation in Abu Dhabi, along with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, hosted a pledging event in Abu Dhabi. And our Mike McGovern, who is now the IPPC chair, was there. And $1.9 billion was pledged by both public and private sector donors. So that is a huge commitment to global eradication efforts. One of the challenges in Pakistan is that children are living in areas that are hard to reach. But we continue to use both female and male frontline workers, and they get into these inaccessible areas. And so the number of those areas declined from 18 to 4 during February when they were doing National Immunization Days. Now, given the instability in the world right now, what's happening in the Middle East, not sure how that's going to play out. But for now, we've reached more children than we were ever able to because of that. On a side note, this morning, I am a U.S. citizen, but beyond that, I am a Rotarian. I sent 3 messages to Pakistan. I sent one to past trustee Aziz. I sent one to past director Fez and one to Rotarian Ishrat. And the message was the same. It said, I'm praying for you and your families, and I hope that you're all going to be safe. And I want you to be safe and be well. Now, I probably put myself on some Department of State watch list because of doing that. But you know what? I'm a Rotarian, and these are members of my family. And again, it's just important for us to remember that we have family in 212 places around the world. Um, in Afghanistan last year, the inactivated polio vaccine was administered along with the oral polio vaccine, and that helped us to keep that level of cases down. And finally, in the African regions, we're seeing more and more success with the variant polio viruses. Africa was declared polio free, but that meant that the wild polio virus had been eliminated. But there is a polio variant that happens because of the vaccine. But we have now contained that, and now we have 4 countries in Africa only: Angola, Chad, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. So we're containing it. And if you've looked at the polio reports, you'll see that those numbers have come down consistently. So we're making progress. We can't take our foot off the pedal. It's much too important for us to do that. For those of you who are polio warriors in your clubs and in your districts, remember that we need to continue to tell the stories about why this is important. In all of our countries, we haven't seen polio in a very long time. There are Rotarians joining our clubs who've never seen it, who don't know anybody, who don't know what polio syndrome is. So it's our responsibility to remind people that as long as children are being born in the world, and as long as we have the ability to help them live a life free from this crippling disease, we'll continue to do the work we need to do with polio eradication. So that's my report for this particular meeting. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chris right now. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you in particular for recognizing the challenging geopolitical climate that we're seeing right now and re-emphasizing Rotary's commitment to that and reminding us all of our humanity. So thank you so much for that. All right, so our next guest is David Jackson, who is the president and CEO of the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce. Now, as you all know, Western North Carolina suffered unprecedented damage from Hurricane Helene. And David is going to talk to us about the economic development needs in Western North Carolina that certainly continue. All right, so off to you, David.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you all for joining the call today. It's great to catch up on the impact of Rotary. I am a former member of the Boone Sunrise Rotary Club here, taking a brief hiatus to get my kids to school on time. But bring you greetings from District 7670. Good to see Governor Alex on the call today. And I know that my subject matter here is of consequence to all of us, even though not everybody in zones 33 and 34 dealt directly with Helene, but these two zones are no strangers to weather disruption and what can happen to a community during that time. So I thank all of you for your work, not only in helping fundraise for all of the different clubs that were able to distribute money to help communities in the immediacy of Hurricane Helene, but for what you do all of the time to show up for your community and for your members and for the unique circumstances that we're all in, whether that's frozen precipitation like we've dealt with here more recently, or the vast tropical systems that I know that we all deal with, and some of us simultaneously. That effort is very much noticed and very appreciated by everybody outside of the Rotary family. So let me just level set a little bit about Boone, North Carolina here as I update you on Hurricane Helene and our recovery in Western North Carolina, and really what comes next and what's still needed. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Boone, we are in the northwest corner of North Carolina, just about where Tennessee, Virginia, and North Carolina all come together in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. About an hour and 45 minutes northwest of Charlotte, if you are familiar with that area, and I'm sure you've flown through that airport at some point in time. The Boone Area Chamber of Commerce services a 3-county area here in the high country of North Carolina, as we call it. You see some pictures of our staff and our board of directors. And yes, that's me with Jason Kelsey. I'll tell that story in the breakout session if you'd like. But we are a staff of about 9 members that service over 700 members in our organization. And because you all are Rotarians, I know you love numbers. Just a little bit about our organization here. We've got a foundation as well. We've had just over 1,000 donors to that over the course of not quite 4 years yet. Most of that hurricane related, as you might imagine. And that foundation impact was now updated to be a little bit more toward $1.6 million in a pretty short period of time. We're also very excited at our chamber. We were named recently the Outstanding Chamber of the Year for both North and South Carolina by our professional organization, the Carolinas Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, and a lot of that had to do with our response to Hurricane Helene as well. So like you all do, you've got to take a bow when good things come to your organization, but it's because of great people. And not only our staff, but our members really help solidify that. So let me tell you a little bit about where we are right now. And I'm going to do that through the lenses of connecting and advocating. First of all, you all know well, and it's been articulated well on this call, Rotarians are connected. So are chambers of commerce, so are regions that go through things like this. As it relates to Hurricane Helene, the most important work that we have done as a region is to connect with one another and advocate for one another. Those of you that have experienced Western North Carolina, you know how interconnected this community is. We've got the beautiful ribbon of the Blue Ridge Parkway that ties us all together from Roanoke, Virginia, down to the very western tip of North Carolina, down by the border of Georgia. We have a lot of folks that come here for multi-day visits, and those visitors don't necessarily know where the county lines or sometimes the state lines are. It's up to us to maintain the integrity of that and know that wherever you are, whether that's in Asheville or Boone, Roanoke, or any of the beautiful communities that are between those locations, that you feel a connection to a place. And when I go back to the fundraising support that we saw during Helene, it was many people that had a heartfelt connection to Western North Carolina that found their way to a $20 gift or a $20,000 gift. And they came in all directions. But again, it was the connection to a place that meant something to them that brought those people back. So we recognize that and certainly appreciate those efforts as we continue to get back on our feet. That regional unity that comes up here. So you see some pictures there on your left from an event that we had in Swannanoa, one of the more devastated communities in Western North Carolina last January, a little over a year ago. That was about 7 chambers of commerce coming together with our legislators to begin to spell out what legislative relief needed to look like. We've taken a trip to Raleigh once. We've got another one scheduled in about 2 months. We'll have convening around transportation needs coming up later this fall that impact the entire Western North Carolina region, as well as fundraising and deploying support for businesses. Like many of you in your communities that have been impacted by weather events, you know that the mechanism is not necessarily there to support the small businesses that are impacted by these communities. Sometimes those state or federal dollars don't flow as freely or as directly. So it's up to the individual communities to really rally that effort. And I can say proudly that we have done that regionally through partners like Mountain BizWorks, our governor, Josh Stein, and his task force set under GROW NC, which is the governor's office for Western North Carolina's economic recovery. They have been tremendous champions in all of the connecting work that needs to go on between the private sector and public funding. So again, the dollars that you're raising from a foundation element not only were necessary then, they are even more impactful now, because as you can imagine, when you get 18 months out from an event like this, the eyeballs tend to move away. And so those partners that are committed to seeing a region respond in a positive way are the ones that are going to see it through the long haul. Asheville's mayor, Esther Manheimer, also a tremendous advocate, has been in Washington, D.C. with the governor a couple of times, advocating to our congressional delegation as well. And we, in this crazy time in our political landscape where bipartisan seems like a punchline rather than a reality, we can proudly say that North Carolina's congressional delegation has been in bipartisan support of not only relief for Western North Carolina, but also finishing off what occurred in Eastern North Carolina years prior, and understanding that our state, unfortunately, has a bullseye on it when it comes to weather disasters, and they're committed to trying to get North Carolinians back on their feet. So you've got a lot more allies. For those of you in the eastern side of the state that are watching this, you've got more allies in the western side of the state than you ever know, and we're ready to step up for you. So as I mentioned, that connection leads to advocacy. We've had a tremendous partner here in Western North Carolina and really throughout the Southeast region in Appalachian State University. The picture toward the middle of the screen on the bottom is Chancellor Heather Norris, who was the interim chancellor when Helene hit. She has now become the permanent chancellor of Appalachian State, and she has led just a galvanized effort from not only those hours after the storm hit, but even more so now about the research that is needed to help justify grant funding, the revolutionary look to resiliency in this part of the state. That terminology has not often been used here. As many of you might know, sometimes communities are like, that happened, it won't happen again for a while, let's just put a Band-Aid on it and move on. App State has become an R2 research university since Helene hit, and they are dedicated to making sure that the research and data support that is needed for proper resiliency funding can be there, and are working tirelessly in that way. So they remain a tremendous partner for us here in this area, and are working all throughout the Southeast in helping on climate resiliency. Our General Assembly, who you see positioned toward the top, just a couple of slides above Chancellor Norris there, they have been helpful in providing Helene-specific funding to Western North Carolina. We do anticipate one final bill coming forward this spring. I put emphasis around the words final. The state might not be able to put a budget together, but they can put disaster aid together, and they have done so to the tune of billions of dollars. And we're going to need it, because this was an expensive storm. And as we know too, those of us that have been in FEMA declared disaster areas, the money flow is not necessarily always quick. And I know I'm oversimplifying there, but what we have seen are due to government shutdowns and other issues, the reorganization of FEMA. We have seen those dollars not necessarily flow to the state as quickly. That matters for your individual communities. We have one community here in Western North Carolina, Avery County, whose debris removal bill exceeds their county budget on an annual basis. So it's the General Assembly, it's the governor's office that are working on ways to get those dollars out. And it's also been private investment that's helped that out. Certainly Rotary International has been very involved in this area, and we thank you all for that. The Duke Endowment, organizations up and down, party lines up and down, different concentrations, Dogwood Family Health Trust, has put hundreds of millions of dollars collectively into our region. And we're not done yet. So know that there is still more money that can come. Those of you in North Carolina may know the name Sharon Decker too. I want to point her out real quick. She's up in the top left of this slide. Sharon was the longtime CEO of the Tryon Equestrian Facility that many of you know, perched down toward the Asheville area in southwestern North Carolina. But Sharon's been connected governmentally in a variety of ways and has been a true champion of finding dollars and finding matches between public and private sector opportunities. She is going to be the lead voice when we think about economic resilience and recovery for the long term. And again, states and areas that have been through this before know that none of this work ends shortly. We've got a lot of work to do that will take years to get us back to any kind of solvency in this area. And Sharon's going to be an important part of that process. So as we continue to advocate, I want to show you what we've done some on the local level here. Just in our high country communities, Watauga, Ashe, and Avery counties, we had 237 businesses that we were able to grant over $1.3 million to as part of a business resiliency disaster grant program. We had 4 funding rounds that went through that process, got some money from Mountain BizWorks based out of Asheville that went to a very specific subset of small rural Main Street communities that are not necessarily part of the Main Street program. Those dollars were impactful because, as I mentioned, there weren't a lot of dollars that went directly to small business support. So these folks have employees working with them. They have brick and mortar businesses that were impacted. They have as you remember, this occurred during the month of October. We have seen several seasonal disruptions from what we call hurricane lag, and these dollars have helped keep people in business and keep their employees employed. This has been a local effort, and I'm going to touch on that again here in just a moment. Grow NC is an agency here in North Carolina that is the head relief agency for this work. It is buoyed by the governor's task force for Hurricane Helene recovery. I'm a member of that task force and proud to be able to serve our region as part of that collective voice. Just recently, Grow activity has helped streamline some federal allocations that have taken months to get to us, but those dollars are hard at work. $75 million to child care facility support, not only in Western North Carolina, but in Eastern North Carolina as well. I mentioned that 12% there on DC advocacy. So usually the federal government takes care of about 50% of a community or in this case, a region's needs for resilience recovery. So far, North Carolina has received 12% of what the estimates were for dollars to come back and combat this work. $244 million impact on our ski industry. So recently, our Governor Josh Stein was in Western North Carolina to highlight our winter sports economy here. He and his wife Anna went skiing at 3 different resorts. They spent some time here, and it's the governor's visits here frequently to Western North Carolina that serve as an attraction for news media. So anytime Governor Stein is in the area, we know that the cameras will follow, and that brings visitors back. Anything that you can do in your individual clubs and in your districts to continue to highlight that not only Western North Carolina, but the upstate of South Carolina, parts of Eastern Tennessee, all throughout this district and the zones here, anybody that's been impacted by Helene, they're ready for visitors and are eager to have those folks back. Also, the state has been hard at work on the resilience side. As I mentioned, recently $5.7 million allocated for some specific flood resilience projects related to the French Broad River Basin down near Asheville, where again, some of the most impactful flood damage was seen. A couple of things I want to leave you with here in my comments. One is to focus focus on your childcare industries in your specific communities. And this is whether you're involved in disaster recovery or not. We understand and see daily that this is the workforce behind the workforce in our communities. The ability to care for children that are pre-kindergarten allows people to get into the workforce, and the workforce that supports that work is often some of the lowest paid members of our service communities. So in North Carolina, we've got quite a bit of work that is being done not only to stabilize the rate floor for reimbursements that come to centers that have children that are involved in DSS, and make sure that they're getting true cost of care. But we're also seeing some of the stabilization of the industry overall, and making sure that centers have a fighting chance to be able to do what they do on a daily basis. In North Carolina, the average business that's involved in childcare has a 1% profit margin. Those of you in business know that you would not be in business if you had to operate on 1%. So we continue to advocate for federal and state support, not only in the hurricane aftermath, but to also look forward to what comes next. And for those of you that are looking for community-specific service projects, any opportunity that you've got to connect with your local child care infrastructure to make sure that they have the tools they need to continue to care for children and provide quality care, not just quantity, that is going to be a game changer in your communities, and your clubs and districts will see nothing but praise from the community, because a lot of times this is a forgotten industry when it comes to funding. So what do we look at next? What is necessary for Western North Carolina moving forward? First of all, North Carolina needs its share. We need to continue to advocate for municipal reimbursements. Your clubs can be incredibly impactful there, especially those with connections to some of the state and federal leaders. Rural infrastructure repair is real and is ongoing now. We've seen millions of dollars allocated to communities to get their water and sewer systems back up and running. That's not what I'll call sexy money. You're not going to win an election advocating for that money, but when it does come down through whatever is left of FEMA, you got to go get it while you can get it for your community. So that work continues to be ongoing. Workforce development for today's needs also is incredibly important for our communities. When we think about the types of trades jobs that we're looking at, emphasis on heavy machinery, a lot of industrial grade plumbing and construction support, road reconstruction and repair. These are things that hopefully your communities have some curriculum alignment with as it relates to their high school and community college programs, leading into maybe four-year opportunities as well. North Carolina's community college system has done a great job at making sure that all of those things trend in the same direction. So we're hopeful that we'll build a workforce that is able to not only address the needs that we have in terms of rebuilding, but they're going to be ready for wherever the next disaster strikes within this state. And then one of the key areas, private home, road, bridge projects, those are all still active and ongoing. That's where a lot of the philanthropic dollars are coming to now, to the long-term recovery groups in individual communities that are taking on some of the home repair that falls outside the boundaries of the big renovation projects. So it could be somebody needing a set of stairs replaced or re-insulation underneath their crawl space. Those projects oftentimes get bumped down to the bottom because it's not a complete home rebuild. So again, that's a great place for philanthropic dollars to go to fund those long-term recovery group projects that can get some money and some volunteers and experts out to continue those projects. Real quickly here, community resilience. I will tell you that as I come back around to what I said earlier about community resilience for the business community, this is going to be something that you all should consider community-wide, because the downward pressure from the reorganization from FEMA is going to hit each one of your states differently. It will hit each one of your counties differently. And in North Carolina right now, one of the things we learned tragically was don't ever schedule a natural disaster in the midst of a contentious presidential election, especially one with an opportunity and kind of a taste for reorganization. We have been told by several of our legislators that if Helene struck tomorrow, FEMA's response would look different, but the needs would still be there. So how are we as a community working to stockpile quick funding that can get out to the business community, to local families that may have a loss due to disruption, or even some of our local government partners that are working in these ways that now are going to experience a different chain of events that will knock dollars to them. we have been encouraged here in North Carolina to think about how these things work more on a community standpoint. One of our neighboring communities in Blowing Rock just lost a longtime restaurant to a fire. We were able to raise our Blowing Rock Chamber partners in the community next door raised $125,000 in 5 days that was distributed to the staff of that business, so those folks can have some money to hang on to while they rebuild the business. It would be nice to have that money available right out of the gate instead of having to fundraise for disasters. You can certainly fundraise during that time, but establishing some money, and that's where, again, Rotarians are often so smart in figuring out how to get dollars into the right hands with skilled people in your communities to help get those dollars to where they need to go. And then as part of that future planning, what your workforce development needs are going to be, what your infrastructure needs may be as well. When you start to think about stormwater runoff areas or areas that are flood prone or just disaster prone, what can you do now, especially with big dollars coming into the region, to harden those things and make sure that maybe they're not quite as big of an issue. We've been working with a gentleman here in our community that's got some ties back to the SBA and looking at doing some resilience planning moving forward for our community to take the lessons learned, make sure that we don't forget what we've been through, and have some opportunity to equip people moving forward as to how they can handle these situations better in the future. And then I'll close on regional collaboration. Again, we're all connected. We're connected in this Zoom room today. We're connected in our communities on a daily basis. You know, we think here in Western North Carolina about the Blue Ridge Parkway, which I mentioned, but also the outdoor economy here is a vibrant one, and it's an interconnected one. People that will take rafting trips from one community to the next or start in one part of the state and work their way down to the other. How we think about how our communities are interconnected with one another will help us solve some of these challenges as we move into the years ahead of this, and make sure that, you know, what happens in Asheville, North Carolina is incredibly important to what happens in the high country up here in the northwestern part of the state, and what happens in, you know, the upstate of South Carolina feeds right into us, and so on and so on. So just remember, it's not just your community; it's the broader sense of community that will always be a connection point. And again, opportunities like this one here always will bring people back together in a timely manner and in ways that we could never imagine until we get in the room and start thinking about what resources are there. So I'll be concluding my remarks here. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I've given you some ideas that you might be able to get back to the drawing board with at the local and district level, certainly. And we'll be happy to take any questions that I can during the breakout, and really appreciate the opportunity today. I'll turn things back over to Chris, and again say greetings, and can't wait to see you again here in the high country of North Carolina.
Awesome stuff, David. Thank you so much for keeping Western North Carolina on everyone's minds. I grew up on the North Carolina coast, and I've been through my fair share of hurricanes. And even with that experience, I have never seen the scope of and the scale of devastation that Western North Carolina suffered. So thank you for continuing to remind us that's a good place to spend dollars. And I know we've got some district conferences coming out to Western North Carolina. So thank you for that. All right, we're going to get you out to one of 3 breakout rooms in just a second. You will have the opportunity to meet with Director Patrick, Trustee Stephanie, or learn a little bit more about what's been going on in Western North Carolina and how you can help from David. But first, let's do a lightning round of what's coming next. So, missed it. All right, there we go. Our next MAP webinar is Monday, March 9th, 2026. You can get registered for that. That's going to be what's your club's problem to solve. So you don't want to miss that. That's awesome content. We have our Foundation Matters webinar. That is March 19th at 6 o'clock for all things Foundation. And the always popular and well-attended public image webinars, Choose Your Canva Adventure. That's going to be March 24th at 6 p.m. Make sure you get registered for that. Zone 34's district leadership seminar, that's coming up very soon, March 28th and 29th. So Zone 34 folks, make sure you get registered for that. And also make sure you keep our Zone Summit on your radar. Make sure you save that date, October 21st through 25th. And I know before that, we have our international convention in Taipei. Still can get registered for that. That's June 13th through 17th. All right. And at International, you will have the opportunity to attend the gathering. That is going to be for Zone 33 and 34 folks. And you will definitely want to get registered for that early because it almost always sells out. That is June 14th. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and open breakout rooms. The breakout rooms, the way it's supposed to work is we will open those up and you should be able to choose one of three. If you don't see it, just hang out in the lobby and we will get you to a breakout room as quickly as we can.